Hello and welcome to this history chat from the University of Leicester. We hope you're having a good main event so far, or if you've just joined us, you've got lots to look forward to for the rest of today. For this history talk, we are joined by Dr. Zoe Groves, who is a lecturer and the admissions tutor in the School of History, Politics and International Relations. Zoe lectures in modern, global, colonial and post-colonial history. She joined Leicester in 2017 from the University of Cambridge, and Zoe has research interests in social and cultural history of Central and Southern Africa. So during this presentation, you're going to have the opportunity to pose questions to Zoe, which we can ask of Zoe at the end of the chat. So please do that in the live event Q&A section. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Zoe, who will run through today's presentation.
Thank you very much, Alex, and welcome everybody. I hope you're enjoying the day so far. I'm sorry not to be able to meet you in person today, but I hope you'll find the presentation useful nonetheless. And I look forward to engaging with you through the questions at the end of the presentation. So I'll begin my presentation now. So Alex has just very kindly introduced you all to me. So I'm Dr. Zoe Groves. I'm the admissions tutor for history at Leicester, as well as a lecturer in the school. Just to let you know, to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. So if I'm going to cover quite a lot of information in this talk, and if there's anything that sort of you feel like I move over too quickly, you will be able to listen to it again. So as well as to pick up on it in the questions. So in this talk, I want to talk to you about why you would choose Leicester as a place to study history. So I'll begin by saying a few general things about Leicester as a university before saying a bit more specifically about our history degree. So Leicester is a top 25 best UK university in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. We have excellent employability statistics, and that refers to the number of our students who will be in full or part-time employment within 6 months of finishing their degrees and graduating. Leicester's a very affordable city, something important for students to be thinking about. We're also a very sustainable city and a sustainable university, something that's really important to us. And we have one of the best student unions in the country. Why study history at Leicester? Well, again, we have very high employability statistics, in fact, slightly higher than the average for the university. And I think that really is testament to the fact that a history degree does put you in a really strong position in terms of career possibilities and opportunities. We have a 3-year degree, but you can turn your 3-year degree into a 4-year degree if you're interested in studying abroad, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. We're a top 15 university for world-leading history research and the #1 ranked East Midlands University for research quality. So the quality of research that we produce is really highly rated, and we're very pleased about that. And I think that the enthusiasm that we have for our research really comes through in terms of our teaching, which is very much tied to our research interests. Staff enthusiasm is something that our students always rate highly in student feedback. And our curriculum, the content of what we teach in our history degree, has been described as nationally distinctive, and we're really, really proud of that. In terms of developing new and innovative ways of teaching and learning, we're part of a collaborative effort with partner universities in the East Midlands through the Centre for History Teaching and Learning, which we helped to establish. And I also just wanted to mention, to flag up at this point, one of our leading research centres within the School of History, Politics and International Relations, and that's the Stanley Burton Centre for Holocaust and Genocide Studies. And the reason for flagging this up is that I know many students, when they're at school, have the opportunity to study about World War II, the history of Nazi Germany, and there are plenty of opportunities through the research expertise that we have in the school for you to continue to study modules in that area, as well as to get involved in some of the research events and public talks and so on that the centre put on for the university. Our degree has a great deal of choice and flexibility built into it. So you can learn about the early medieval period, and we have modules ranging right up to very different topics, such as looking at the war in Vietnam. And one of the reasons why we're able to offer such a wide range of chronological, geographical, and thematic different types of history is because we're a fairly large department. We have 35 full-time academic staff, and you're able to shape the content of your degree at Leicester by choosing modules from year one onwards. We have a really wide range of optional modules, and I'll show you some examples of those in just a moment. But just to emphasize that I think this is one of the things that really makes our degree quite distinctive from other universities across the country where you can study history, in that from the very first year you get to choose the modules according to your interests, as well as studying what we call the core or compulsory modules. So as I said, we're very proud of the fact that our curriculum has been described by leading educational experts as dynamic and novel and nationally distinctive. We're constantly updating the content of what we teach in response to and to reflect developments in research and the sort of new research fields and specialisms that we are working on. I myself, as Alex said when he was introducing me, specialise in the history of Central and Southern Africa, and there's a photograph here that I use in one of my special subject modules that I'll describe to you in a moment, that looks at the history of liberation struggles in Zimbabwe, nationalist movements in the Southern African region, alongside the history of the anti-apartheid movement and other types of liberation movements in Southern Africa in the 20th century. But we have a really wide variety of expertise from the early medieval period, ranging right up to contemporary history, and by that I mean looking at the history of the 21st century even. Our expertise looks from Britain, Ireland and Europe to the Americas, Africa, Asia and Australia. So there aren't many parts of the globe that we don't cover. And our specialist areas of expertise are organised around these research centres and research clusters. So I've already mentioned the Stanley Burton Centre for Holocaust and Genocide Studies. We also have a flagship research centre in urban history, another one in English local history, a medieval research centre where we collaborate and present research alongside our colleagues in archaeology and ancient history. We have a fantastic, really lively Centre for American Studies, and they've been running a series of events recently focusing on the lead up to the elections in America taking place this year. And we also have a research cluster that focuses on the global colonial and post-colonial research topics. And these aren't just centres for staff to engage with one another and to discuss our research. There are plenty of ways for students to get involved in the events that these centres put on. And just one example of this was the photography exhibition that staff and students in the Stanley Burton Centre organised at the university a few years ago. So there are lots of opportunities for students to volunteer and to engage and to get sort of really great work experience, as well as just to enjoy being part of that community, that lively and thriving research community that we have in history. So to say a bit more about the structure of the school and sort of where we sit in the university, history is part of the School of History, Politics and International Relations. It's home to world-leading research and a wide range of undergraduate as well as postgraduate degrees. And I'll say a little bit in a moment in the next slide about the various different degrees that we offer in history. The school is also a vibrant hub for partnerships, collaborations with various institutions, the Institute for Historical Research, a number of local museums and heritage institutions, as well as the NATO Defence College. And that's something that's particularly relevant, I think, for anyone interested in doing the joint degrees with politics or international relations. The School of History, Politics and IR, International Relations, is part of the College of Social Sciences, Arts and Humanities. So our students also get a chance to mix with and engage with scholars and research that's taking place in other parts of the college in areas such as film, art history, English, creative writing, and many more subjects. To say a bit about the different ways that you can study history, you can do so through the single honours degree, the BA in history, or the BA in modern and contemporary history. The difference between those two degrees is that the modern and contemporary history focuses specifically on the 20th and 21st centuries. And you can also choose from some of the politics modules from the politics side of our school if you're taking that degree. We also offer joint degrees with American Studies, Politics, International Relations, Ancient History, Archaeology and English. So a really wide range of different ways that you can combine the study of history with other subjects that you may also be very interested in. So to say a bit more about how we structure the degree across the 3 years, in each year, each academic year is divided into 2 semesters. And in the first semester, in your first year, on this, I'm speaking here about the single honours history programme, you will take 3 what we call core, meaning compulsory modules. So these are modules that everybody enrolled on this degree will be taking together. 2 of these modules, Barbarism and Civilization and the Shock of the Modern, are there to introduce you to different time periods. They're kind of broad survey modules that give you a flavour of what it's like to study medieval and early modern history. And this is particularly important, I think, for those who may not have had the opportunity to study an earlier period of history before. And the Shock of the Modern, as well as being an introduction to some of the sort of hot topics, if you like, in the study of modern history, is also an opportunity to interrogate and to think critically about what do we mean by the modern? When does modern history begin? What attributes do we associate with modernity or this period of being modern? So we think about issues to do with urbanization, industrialization, changes in the economy, changes in the holding of religious beliefs, processes of secularization, just to give you some examples. And the core module, Making History, is one that you will take with your personal tutor, and I'll explain a bit about who your personal tutor is and what their role is in a moment. But this is a module that really sort of breaks down and is designed to help you with the transition to university, coming from school or from college, or for mature students perhaps from a different background altogether. So instead of assuming that you already have the kind of knowledge and skills that you need to study history, this module is really geared up towards sort of breaking down those basics, asking what does a history essay look like at university level? What does it, what is a bibliography, and why is it important that we use references when we're writing history? In semester 2, this is where the choice and the optionality comes into our degree, because in semester 2 you get to choose all of your modules, and you'll choose one of what we call a people and places option, and I'll show you some examples of those in a moment, as well as 2 option modules from these more geographically focused modules. So we have one looking at America, another on Europe, another on Great Britain, and then something slightly different with global history. And this is introducing you to a particular approach, a sort of a new historiographical approach to the study of history, a new way of studying the history of different parts of the world, but also a module that thinks about the longer history of globalization since 1750, so exploring connections between different parts of the world, with a particular focus on parts of what we might refer to as the global south, or areas of the formerly colonized world. So some examples here of the people and places modules that we offer, and as you might guess from the title People and Places, these modules focus in on either a particular place, as in the example of Shanghai, or a particular individual. So for example, with one of our medieval options that focuses on a prominent medieval figure, Jacques de Vitry. And in these modules, you'll work very closely with the module tutor, the module convener, who'll be an expert in this area, and they'll introduce you to primary sources. And what I mean by that is historical documents that focus on these particular people and places, and that you can use to think and to begin to study a period or an individual in more depth. In the second year of your degree, again, you'll have a combination of core or compulsory modules alongside some varieties or optional modules. And I'll show you some examples of those in a moment. The core modules in this year of your study are intended to help you develop really crucial research skills as well as transferable skills that will be really important in a number of career paths that you might go on to after your degree. They also are there to prepare you for your final year dissertation, and I'll explain a bit more what the dissertation is in a moment. And they introduce and have an element of collaborative work, so I think it's really important that students learn to sort of work as part of a team, as that's often how you'll be operating in the workplace later on. You'll also get to develop and write a formal research proposal, and there are some options with practice-based or work-related option placements available as well, and I'll say a bit about those in a moment. So some examples here of the different varieties modules that we offer, and this is the opportunity to study a major historical theme or approach, such as gender, race, violence, religion, cities, so urban history, or the history of medicine. And there are some examples here of books published by some of my colleagues in history at Leicester. Some examples here of option modules that you can choose from in your second year. Again, these range from modules focusing on the medieval period, others looking at key sort of historical moments such as or themes such as slavery and the Civil War in the US. We have modules focusing on Latin America and the United States, the Soviet Union. That's always a very popular one with our students. It's an example here of a module on China, imperialism and decolonization. And another very popular module with our students is this module on Jack the Ripper, taught by one of my colleagues who specializes in the history of medicine, but also the histories of crime and popular culture and policing in Victorian times. In the final year of your degree, you'll produce a dissertation, and a dissertation is an independent research project. It's a 10,000 word piece of research, and this is where our students get to produce often the best work of their entire degree, and some of this work is so fantastic and of such a great quality that it's even gone on to be published in professional history journals. Although it's an independent research project, you will work on this dissertation with support from a supervisor who will be an expert in the field and the topic that you have chosen in consultation with them. And you'll have a series of one-to-one tuition meetings with them throughout the final year. The special subject module, you'll also take, this is slightly different from the other modules because again, it runs across the 2 semesters, so across the entire academic year. And this is a bit like a more in-depth version of the people and places modules. So again, it's an in-depth study of a focused historical topic based on your tutor's research specialism. And you'll be looking very closely at historical documents, primary sources, and a sort of a really wide range of different types of primary sources, not all kind of written, official government texts, but they might include photographs or other kinds of material artifacts, for example. And then finally, then you also have 2 more option modules, once again, there's a really wide range of option modules for you to choose from the medieval period to much more contemporary topics, including one that I teach on, migration and diasporas in the modern world. Another module that I mentioned earlier, the US and the Vietnam War, also tends to be very, very popular with our students. An example of a module on Nazi Germany, taught by one of my colleagues from the Stanley Burton Centre. But you can also you might choose modules that relate to things that you've studied previously in your degree, or you can choose something completely different, for example, looking at clothing and fashion in historical perspective. In terms of the style of learning, or how we teach in our students, we use a combination of lectures, seminars and tutorials. Lectures tend to, under normal circumstances, would take place in a sort of larger lecture theatres on campus, and they might have groups of students ranging from maybe 20 or 30 up to perhaps 100 or possibly more. And seminars differ in that they tend to be a much more sort of interactive way of learning, and in tutorials as well, there'll be much more of a kind of a dialogue between students and among students, as well as between students and their lecturers and the module tutors. And there's more seminar style teaching as the degree progresses. You have approximately 9 hours, 9 contact hours, so that's a combination of lectures, seminars and tutorials per week. But you can build on those contact hours by arranging one-to-one supervisions with module conveners, as well as dissertation supervisors, for example, or meeting with your personal tutor. To support our teaching, we have a really excellent range of digital resources available, so historical collections that have been digitized, and databases that our university library subscribe to, which are sort of absolutely crucial considering the way that a lot of teaching and research is taking place in the digital realm at the moment. But we also have really excellent resources and facilities in the library to support your learning. And for some of our modules, and where possible, we really like to include field trips and to get outside of the classroom. And we have a number of modules, as I mentioned as well, that have work experience placements built into the module. Our degrees then, our history degrees, are designed to help you develop independent work skills. So you do need to be self-motivated. You will learn good time management skills during your degree, and you do need to pay attention to detail. I think this is important when it comes to developing the research skills that you that you will need to excel and to do well in a history degree. So that's finding, synthesizing and processing large volumes of information. You'll also develop really important analytical and evaluation skills. So skills that will be valuable in problem solving, and looking at different types of data as well, textual data, but it might also be statistical data that you're analyzing. So again, really important skills that would play a crucial part of a whole range of different jobs that you might want to go into after your degree. As a history student, you will develop really excellent communication and writing skills. You'll be asked to do presentations at various points independently and in groups. You'll be making an argument in your written work. And you'll also be doing an element of group work. So it's not always independent. You'll be sometimes working closely with a team to produce a particular piece of work. And the final point to mention on this slide is this idea of creating or sort of nurturing a global mindset. And I say here that this is about developing kind of a cultural awareness, but I also think that this is related to empathy. And really, when you study history, one of the crucial sort of things that you're doing as a historian is trying to get your head inside the minds of people who lived in the past. So people who were probably very different from yourself, people that lived in a very different time and place. And we're trying to understand how people viewed the world, why they made the decisions that they did. And those are really sort of valuable skills, I think, for going out into the world and working with people in different parts of the world, but also in very different contexts. So there's a really wide range of career possibilities for history graduates. Our students have gone on to have jobs in the civil service, government, administration, management, finance, teaching, working in marketing, exhibitions, journalism, recruitment, publishing, museums and galleries, libraries, archives and research. I'd also add to that many of our students stay on for postgraduate studies, and we have really excellent range of master's degree courses, both within history and at the university more broadly. Just to mention the Leicester Award, this is a personal skills development program that allows you to maximise the activities that you're doing outside of your degree in order to further sort of feed into the sort of building your CV, if you like, and maximising your competitiveness in the jobs market. But employability is also embedded into the degree courses and in a whole range of different ways. We have opportunities for paid internships with institutions such as the Institute of Historical Research, sometimes working more closely directly with specific historians within the department on their research projects. I mentioned earlier the option placement-based modules. So in the second year, if you're interested in a career in teaching, there's a module called History in the Classroom, where you would have a placement with one of our local Leicester schools. And alongside that, you'll learn about the history of education in Britain through a series of seminars and workshops with the module convener at Leicester. There's also the Heritage Field Project, and this is about a placement. This is an example of a placement-based module where you would go into work with a local heritage organisation, for example, a museum. So a really diverse range of ways that employability is embedded into your degree, and we also have a dedicated careers tutor in history who can talk to you about how best to sort of build up your CV and to get the most out of your degree. There's a nice picture here of me and some of my colleagues at graduation. One of the events that we really love and look forward to every year. We're always very proud to see our students graduating after all the hard work that goes into their degree in those 3 or 4 years. As well as our staff, I think I've mentioned as well that we have a postgraduate community, and postgraduates interact with undergraduates in sort of a number of different ways through the kind of research centres, for example, but also in putting on events of their own. And our postgraduates organise a regular event, a series of events through what they call the New History Lab. And this poster here just shows you the advertising of the annual historic pub crawl, one of the events that takes place usually every year. I think unfortunately this year it wasn't able to happen, but that's where you will go to different parts of the city and learn a bit about the sort of local history of pubs and the sort of architectural history of some of those buildings as well. So lots of fun. How do we support you as students during your time here? Well, primarily through the personal tutor system. So every student is allocated a personal tutor. You will meet with your personal tutor at the very beginning of your degree and then regularly throughout each semester and each year. Your personal tutor is there to offer you pastoral support and also support with your academic studies. So if you have any questions related to any aspect of your academic studies, your personal tutor is the person to go to. If they aren't able to provide you with the answers to your questions, then they know who to direct you to in terms of the additional support services that the university has for our students. And that might be in regards to well-being through the counselling service, for example, or it might be in regard to additional support, academic support with academic skills, for example, for students who have any learning difficulties such as dyslexia. Study abroad, I mentioned earlier. I won't spend too much time talking about this, but you can see some examples here of the many different partner institutions that we have in different parts of the world: Europe, Australia, Canada, and the US, South Korea, Japan. We also have summer school opportunities. So if you're not sort of so keen on the idea of spending a whole year abroad, then there are still opportunities to travel as part of your degree program. And the key point I think that I want to emphasize here is, although there's still a little bit of uncertainty about about the future of the Erasmus program, which is how the EU exchanges are currently organized, we're really, Leicester's really determined to maintain those partnerships with European universities, even if the Erasmus scheme does break down. So it will still be possible to study at some of those European universities, but just not through the current Erasmus scheme. Just to offer some quotes from a couple of our current students. So Kate, who's one of our current third-year students, when asked, why did she choose Leicester and what is it that she's found sort of, why she enjoyed her time at Leicester, she says that she chose to study history at Leicester because of the wide variety of modules that were available, and she knew that she could tailor her degree around the subjects that really interested her. She also mentions, and I'm really pleased to see, the support systems that Leicester has in place, and she comments on how everything is focused on ensuring that our students are happy and supported during their time at the university. So it's really nice to get that positive feedback from one of our current third-year students. And Tom, who's pictured next to Kate, says that, and Tom's one of our current master's students, previously one of our undergraduate students in history, really likes how much time that you can have with the lecturers, and says they're all really approachable and always happy to help. So again, really nice feedback from Kate and Tom. In terms of applying to Leicester, and I'm just in the final few slides now, so getting towards the end. For single honours history, our standard offer is ABB at A level or BBB plus a B in the EPQ. Slightly different for international relations and history, so it's BBB at A level, and all other courses ABB at A level, or again BBB plus a B in the EPQ. Each year, if we are able to accept any students who have just missed out on their offers, then priority is given to those who select Leicester as their firm choice. And the really, I think the key point that I would like to emphasize here is to don't worry if you're sort of anxious about missing out on the grades that we're asking for here. I think get in touch. We're happy to have a conversation with you about that on a one-to-one basis. But my advice ultimately in the application process is apply to the university that where you can imagine yourself flourishing, where you see yourself being most comfortable, that offers the kind of degree program that really speaks to you. So don't sort of don't second guess yourself too much about perhaps missing out on those grade requirements. Some information there about other mixed qualification typical offers, and I'm just going to move very quickly on because I want to make sure that we do have enough time for questions afterwards. But if anyone has any questions about those mixed qualification offers, then please do contact me. In terms of who we're looking for, well, we're looking for students who have empathy. I think that's something that I mentioned, and I think a history degree will help you to develop empathy. Students who will respect others, respect others within our community and within the city. Have students who have the ability to manage uncertainty, have resilience, but these are also things that you will build during your degree as well. Just quickly to flag up, really important opportunity, the Citizens of Change scholarships. So these are new scholarships that will be available for 2021-22 to mark 100 years since the university opened. So do have a look, go to our website and visit le.ac.uk leicester.ac.uk/scholarships to learn more about the terms and conditions and what scholarships and bursaries are available. Really fantastic opportunity to potentially receive a really substantial amount of financial support towards your degree. So do have a look at those. And this is my final slide then. Why Leicester? Just to summarise in a nutshell, in one sentence, I think come to Leicester to study in a city with a fascinating history of its own, from Richard III to sporting miracles and Leicester's rich history of migration. I really do think that Leicester is a fantastic place to do a history degree. So please get in touch with me. That's my email address. As I say, I'm Zoe Groves. You can email me on zrg3@leicester.ac.uk. You can see in that picture, so that's me in the picture at the bottom with my colleague Jan van der Bury, who's answering some of the questions in the UniBuddy chat. So he's also our study abroad coordinator. So again, if you do have any questions about either of study abroad or admissions more generally, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zoe. That was a really fascinating chat, and I certainly wish I could tell about the time and that I had at university and maybe choose history, because it does sound a fantastic degree. We don't have a lot of time left, so we probably should move on to the questions. So the first question that came in was from Hannah, and Hannah would like to know if any of the modules that would be chosen or studied in years 2 or 3 have any prerequisites for the first year.
No is the very short answer to that question. Basically, everybody in their first year is required to pass all of your modules, all of the assessments in your first year in order to proceed into the second year. But that's essentially the only sort of prerequisite for you to continue on to your second year. But in terms of choosing particular option modules, there aren't any sort of specific additional prerequisites. So it's a good question. Yeah.
Okay. Another question's coming in from someone who's not displayed their name, but they're asking, what is the split of a dual course like? So, for example, international relations and history.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the important thing to note there is that the joint honours degrees that we offer are divided evenly. So you'll be studying each subject evenly weighted, so 50-50. And the difference really between the joint and the single honours degrees is that is the number of modules that you'll be doing. So as a joint honours degree student, you would take 4 modules in each semester rather than 3 modules that you do on the single honours programme. So you have slightly higher number of contact hours on the joint degree than you do the single honours degree. And I guess it's also something that you need to think about in terms of time management and just managing the different number of modules that you'll be doing.
Okay, we've got another question here from Hannah, and Hannah's asking, as the admissions tutor, what are you looking for in their UCAS personal statements? Yeah,
that's another good question, the question that often comes up. And the answer that I usually give is that really we're looking for you to just express why it is you have a passion and an interest for history. You know, we hope that all of our students who come to study history with us are passionate about the subject. And what really can help to make your personal statement stand out is to describe, something perhaps different from what we might what sort of specific and unusual and interesting curiosities do you have in history? What history books are you reading? How are you engaging with history in your spare time?
Okay, and I know you showed a slide on entry requirements, but we've had a couple of questions which you might be able to answer together around what are the entry requirements for history, and for BTECs, what grades are we looking for history entries?
Yeah, so the standard requirements for those who have studied A levels is ABB or BBB plus a B in your EPQ. So that's if you're coming from the kind of more traditional route, I suppose, of taking A levels. We do accept BTECs, and my advice with that would be to contact me directly, because just to clarify, I always sort of, sometimes with the mixed qualifications offers, it's a slightly more complicated answer. So instead of me giving you the wrong answer now, get in touch with me directly and I'll make sure that I give you exactly the right information that you need.
Okay, we have another question around studying abroad. So are there any academic or language requirements in order to qualify for the study abroad programme?
Yeah, that's a good question, and something that often people think might exclude them from studying, particularly at some of our European partner institutions. For most of them, there aren't language requirements. For a couple of them, there are. My colleague, again, Dr. Jan van der Bury, would be the person to offer more specific advice on different partner institutions and the different requirements. But just, I guess, the important thing is to know that most of those universities that we're sending you to, the language of instruction would be English. And often you have the opportunity to learn another language while you're there, and we of course encourage you to do that, but it's not always a requirement in order to apply to that institution.
We have a question from Amy, which again, it's around entry requirements, and it's do we often give a lower offer because of a certain grade in an EPQ?
So I'm not sure I completely understand the question of, well, so maybe you're referring to, the standard offer. So the standard offer, as I said, for history single honours is ABB, or if you've done, if you get a B in your EPQ, then the offer lowers slightly to BBB. So EPQs are important, and we love it when our students, students applying to us have done an EPQ. And that can also be something to write about in your personal statement. But again, if you have any sort of specific queries or concerns about entry requirements, I'd encourage you to email me and I'll be able to get back to you on a one-to-one basis.
That's great. So all remains really is to say, really, enjoy the rest of your day. Please make the most of the chats and look for the other sessions that are on. There is a session at 2 o'clock, and that's specifically to help people choose a course. So if you're undecided which course you want to study at university, do go along to the 2 p.m. chat, because that's a really, really good talk, and it talks about the different things you might want to consider when you're making those choices. So on behalf of Zoe, I'd like to thank you for such a fascinating chat today, and everyone else, hope you enjoy the rest of your day.